This is Support is Sexy, episode 491, with Sabena Suri, co-founder and chief strategy officer at BoxFox. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I bring you inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and lessons to help you take your business to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm so excited to have you here. You know, it just would not be the same without you. And if you are a woman entrepreneur who is looking to really magnify your message, come out of the shadows, step into the spotlight, and raise awareness for your brand, you must consider podcast guesting. Podcast guesting is a great way to get your message out there in front of new audiences and potential leads again and again. Now, if you haven't done it before, or you're new to podcasting, or you don't want to do all the research that has to go into finding the right shows that align with your brand, don't worry about it. Just download my free guide on how to be an unforgettable podcast guest. Just go to girlonpodcastgift.com. That's girlonpodcastgift.com. Now today, I'm so excited about our guest, Sabena Suri. I was super excited because now I have another great resource for buying great gifts for people, but also to hear Sabena talk about building her company with her co-founders. The company is called BoxFox, and that's at shopboxfox.com, but also what it was like to have co-founders, the transition for her into entrepreneurship, how they were able to grow their business so fast by really listening to what the customer asks for. And that's a thing we have to remember as entrepreneurs, right? We have this idea or vision in mind. The customer starts to ask for something else. That could be a pivotal moment in your business. So Sabena talks about that. Also, how they grew the brand as far as social media and marketing strategy. And she's the chief strategy officer. So that's definitely her wheelhouse. And she talks about why it was important to she and her co-founders to bootstrap the business and to not, at this point, take on investors. So great tips in here if you're someone who's selling a physical product, especially we talk about things like fulfillment, merchandising, marketing, as I mentioned, and so much more. So get ready to take notes. Without further ado, Sabena Suri. So Sabena, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to chat with you.
Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So our first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
So I think for me, unlike a lot of entrepreneurs, I didn't always know that starting a business was going to be my journey. I've always had sort of an entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm very creative by nature. Growing up, I always had ideas for how, life could be better and little improvements. And I was the person playing store and setting up a lemonade stand and things like that. But at the same time, I was always pretty linear and type A in sort of the way I thought about my life and my journey. I was really involved in school activities, really into studying and things like that, and always motivated to set myself up for the best future I could possibly have. But I would say all of that really changed after we sort of came up with this idea for BoxFox. So it really felt kind of risky in just the right way because we really did believe so deeply in this concept and what the potential of this idea could be. And I was really driven more by a need to bring this service into people's lives than about sort of this abstract concept of entrepreneurship or what being an entrepreneur would entail. It wasn't really for me about kind of having that job title. It was more about creating this company. But with all of that said, I would say once we really got this off the ground and I started to kind of live the entrepreneurial life and really be able to create this company from the ground up in a way that felt authentic, felt like something we really believed in. That is when I truly fell in love with entrepreneurship and realized sort of the power that you can have as an entrepreneur to really shape people's lives and bring something into the world that you believe in so deeply. So that was kind of my journey to becoming an entrepreneur, and how now I feel like it's the most natural thing in the world for me.
Right. It feels like a natural fit now that you're there.
Exactly.
Not an easy fit all the time, right? But natural.
Exactly. Not
Right.
easy. We always talk about that as co-founders, that, a lot of people, when you're thinking about entrepreneurship, in theory, you're like, oh, I'm going to have this free lifestyle and it's going to be so kind of low pressure. I'm going to be able
I'll
to
work
take
whenever I want.
vacations.
Exactly.
Exactly. And that's not really the case, all the time. But it's the good and the bad, I would say.
That's right. So now, where did you set up this lemonade stand when you were younger? Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Northern California, in a town called Fremont, which is about an hour south of San Francisco, in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. So I grew up there, very community-driven type of town. I actually went to high school about 45 minutes out from there, so I always had kind of a crazy commute. So I guess LA transition wasn't too jarring for me. But yeah, I mean, I loved growing up in NorCal. I think I drew a lot of inspiration from growing up in the Silicon Valley, especially kind of during a lot of the tech boom that happened at that time and is still continuing, obviously. And my high school was also very kind of math, science, and tech oriented. So I had a lot of influences from sort of growing up and being brought up in the Bay Area.
What would you say were your aspirations once you got maybe to high school and started thinking about what your future might look like, especially growing up? I don't know if I know anyone personally who has actually grown up near Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, I thought I was not going to work anywhere near technology, just because that wasn't necessarily my passion. I was really passionate about reading and writing, so I thought I wanted to go into journalism, and that actually was a huge motivation for me going to USC, which is where I ended up going to college, because they have an amazing journalism school. So I thought my entire kind of high school career, I was in school newspaper, I took AP English, I was very into the idea of writing and kind of that path. And then, day one of USC, I remember so clearly my teacher or the instructor said, welcome, you're at one of the best, most prestigious journalism schools in the country. Unfortunately, journalism is really a dying field, and we would recommend that you guys do something a little bit more digital. It was so jarring for me.
Gosh, give me my money back.
Exactly. I was like, wait, hold on, why am I here? And it was very jarring, and obviously I think part of that was they were trying to sort of weed people out that didn't really belong there, and people that were there for maybe the wrong reasons. And they were trying to sort of encourage us to also incorporate more digital curriculum into our program. But I think obviously kind of getting to that point was a little bit jarring for your first day of school.
So after you got out of school, did you pursue journalism at all, or whether digital or traditional at that time?
So I actually, over the course of being at USC, I ended up switching into PR as my major, public relations. And so I thought, that was something that it kind of combined my interest in more of the business side, which I developed while at USC, with sort of the writing side that I already knew that I was passionate about. So it felt like a good fit. As I interned at more and more PR agencies, I realized that wasn't necessarily where I saw myself, just because I felt like the role wasn't an exact fit for what I wanted. I was much more interested in kind of the marketing side of things. And so I ended up going into advertising right out of college and realizing that that's where my true passion really lied. And I started to work for an agency called Ogilvy and Mather, who is based in New York, but I was in the LA office. And yeah, I worked, I did a rotational program. So I got to kind of be exposed to all aspects of an advertising agency, which for me coming out of college was an amazing way to kind of take everything in and see what I was really passionate about.
And how long were you there or within the advertising industry before you and your co-founder started BoxFox?
So I worked in advertising from 2012 to 2016. So four years. I was concurrently from 2014 to 2016 also working on BoxFox nights and weekends. So there was a little bit of overlap there. But yeah, it was 4 years, and I worked primarily in brand strategy in that discipline within advertising.
Thank you for sharing the overlap. I just spoke to someone earlier and I was telling her how I like to try to now make sure that I ask people what the transition was like for them if they didn't go straight into entrepreneurship. Because just as we mentioned earlier, people think the glamour and things of entrepreneurship, or people just jump ship and went into it. The transition looks different for everybody.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely does. And I think the transition is really important because the most important thing, I think, as an entrepreneur is really your mindset. And you need to be ready to take on kind of what that new lifestyle is going to be. And that can feel really jarring for people. There's so many changes that come with being an entrepreneur. Obviously, I have two co-founders, so it was a little bit less, I guess, lonely and a little bit more community driven. But at the same time, a lot of changes. You don't go to an office the same way. You don't have kind of like a day-to-day plan. You don't have a boss to be accountable to. So there's a lot of changes that happen that you kind of have to gear up for. And for me, that transition was, it took about 2 years. And that was really for two reasons. One is that I really did love what I was doing. Brand strategy is a really cool part of advertising where you get to do a lot of consumer research and work with your creative teams. So it's really interesting. And I do think it sort of shapes what I do now. But that was one aspect. And then the other aspect was we really didn't know how big BoxFox was going to grow. It's such a risk. And even when you believe so much in the idea, which we did, it's hard to gauge, is that dream actually going to become a reality? Am I going to be able to support myself with this business? And are we going to be able to support all three of us? And then, then some and hire a team and all of that. And so the transition was a little bit slow by design. And I was the third and final co-founder to BoxFox full time. But I can confidently say that when that time came, I could not have been more ready and more prepared to kind of jump it would mean to be an entrepreneur.
So tell us about how the idea for BoxFox came about, or how you end up joining your co-founders, Chelsea and Jenny, right? Are your co-founders?
Yes, Chelsea and Jenny.
Yes. So tell us how that came about.
Yeah, absolutely. So really it came about because of a personal experience. And I think a lot of the best ideas are founded that way. Really, one of our mutual friends was sick in the hospital, and she actually works for us now and is totally fine, but she was kind of going through a rough patch, and we were all working full-time jobs with these crazy hours. You're at the bottom of the totem pole, and it's impossible for you to take a lunch break, let alone, drive around to a bunch of stores and get a gift for somebody. And so we realized we wanted to be there for her in a way that was meaningful and in a way that would actually give her things that she could use to actually heal herself, not just a gesture, but items that she would actually be able to use while in the hospital and after, during her aftercare. And so things that like cozy socks, or maybe a book or journal or essential oil, that kind of thing. And we were looking on the internet for this type of solution. We're like, this has to exist, a really, elevated way to send a care package essentially. And we could not find anything. We found flowers, we found sort of cheesy food centric gift baskets. Right. And we realized, why doesn't this type of company exist? And we thought back to it and realized we had so many experiences that were really similar to this, that our friends kind of had moved all over the country and world after college college, and how were we going to maintain those relationships, realizing that gifting has such a presence in our lives and in our communities. And so for us, it was always kind of about being there for our friends when we couldn't physically be there. And we didn't necessarily have the time, but we knew that those gestures are what really maintain those relationships.
So what was your first step then in creating the product? And tell everyone what exactly BoxFox is, and then that first step.
Yeah, absolutely. So BoxFox is an online gifting company that lets you send a pre-curated gift box or lets you build your own gifts and care packages through our platform, the BoxFox. And our pre-curated gifts are themed to milestones and occasions in life and work, across genders, across recipients and audience types. And then Build a BoxFox lets you totally customize each and every care package. So you can go on site and choose the color palette, the theme. I believe you can make 4 billion combinations. It really is incredibly personal and comes with a handwritten note, choice of where in the US and select international destinations as well. And so that's BoxFox. Yep.
Yeah, we choose from the products that are already on your website because you have tons of great things already there that when we want to build a box,
Exactly. So you can choose from all of our brands and products. We have kind of the best in class of every category, from food to home goods to candles, stationery, all of that. And so it's our mission to bring all of the best brands under one roof and make it super easy for you to send a beautiful gift.
So now what was the first step for you all when you decided, okay, we're going to create this company that allows us to send these exquisite gift boxes to friends, family, colleagues, I would think clients, et cetera. I'm sure a lot of people use it for different things now. But
Exactly.
what was the priority for you in setting things up first?
So the priority for us was really kind of building out the idea first and foremost. I think, we knew kind of roughly that we wanted to build a website that would make it easy to send a gift. But beyond that, we didn't know how that was going to come to life. We had to think about the best way to actually package these gifts. So our first step was definitely, what is this box? What does it look like? What is the material we're going to use? What is the color palette we want? How is that going to ship? So we need to think about sort of like how it's packaged, inside a shipper, the crinkle, all of that. So we were definitely ordering a lot of box samples from China and also from the US, sort of playing around with different product fits and things like that, and buying a ton of sample products. So that part was really fun, going to different stores and trying to find different candles, different chocolate, different stationery, all of that. That was kind of the initial stages. And then we were also mapping out the website. So how do we want the user experience to flow? How do we want to sort of make it easy for people to find what they're looking for? How do we want to theme the boxes? So do we want the boxes to be only occasion-based or a little bit more thematic? So those were kind of the initial first steps. And then there's obviously the operational things we had to think about. So getting a business license, registering in the state of California, making sure we were legally registered in all the right ways. So that was all really important first steps as well.
Did you have to do any kind of special registrations because you're shipping food occasionally? I'm just curious if there's any kind of certain stipulations you have to have because of your, shipping food products.
We didn't have any special regulations with the food. One thing we did run into early on was we thought we would probably want to include alcohol. And that is, kind of a nightmare in terms of shipping. So to this point, we don't ship any alcohol because every state has different legislation around alcohol.
Right. And you have to make sure someone's of a certain age and all of that, right?
Exactly. So that was something that we kind of have chosen to stay away from, and honestly have realized that alcohol sometimes, as much as it can make a great gift, it's also not always the most personal gesture. So we really do kind of believe that, you can send an amazing gift without kind of that as a key component.
How did you go about choosing which products that you wanted or which brands you wanted to include? I know you said you shopped around a little bit, I guess, for different types of things you'd want, stationery, soaps, candles. But how did you all go about deciding these are the brands we're going to work with and connecting with them?
Yeah, so that was definitely an initial first step. I think we kind of all came together as co-founders, and we already had favorite brands that we were very well acquainted with. I think one commonality between us is we're all very into brands, into shopping, very have our finger on the pulse of things. So that made it a little bit easier. But we definitely came together and said, okay, what are kind of our favorite candle brands? What are our favorite stationery brands, wellness brands, self-care and beauty brands, those kind of things. And we made a master list, and then we sort of went, crossed out brands that didn't necessarily align with our overall vision. And then we just started reaching out to these brands and saying, hey, we have this company, we are registered, a wholesale. Honestly, we heard a lot of no's at the beginning, whether it was brands that were like, just brands that never got back to us because they had no idea who we were, things like that. Our first brand that we got on board was Herbivore. They are an all-natural beauty brand. And so they sell things like bath salts, lip scrubs, facial oils, and they're in Sephora now, and they're definitely getting a lot bigger. But that was just so cool for us because we still remember that they were one of our first yeses, and we've sort of seen their journey. And they're one of our best selling brands to this day. They do amazing for us. So I think, from the beginning, we were all about sort of, like I said, bringing the best brands that we really already felt, really already knew about, as well as discovering kind of new brands that we knew our customers would want to get exposed to.
What would you say was key for you, especially being the strategy co-founder and chief strategy officer? What would you say was key for you or is key for you as a strategy for letting people know about BoxFox, especially in the beginning?
Yeah, in the beginning, I think for us, Instagram was always the biggest channel. And I would say, back in 2014 when we started, there was a little bit more of that organic engagement with Instagram. Obviously, a lot of things have changed with the social media world. But for us, it was most important that we sort of consistently put out the same message. We sat together and really carved out our main messaging points. What are the things we want to hit over and over to make sure that we're sort of building out this brand? And so we had a list of probably 10 key phrases that we would repeat in a lot of our marketing messaging. And that seems like such a simple kind of task, but I think a lot of companies don't think about their messaging that way, and how can we be super consistent? And we sort of did the same thing with our our aesthetic. So when we were posting on Instagram and things like that, it was, what are the key sort of verticals that we want to make sure that we're hitting through our imagery? So we want to make sure we're hitting, we call it like flat lays, which are products laid out. Box tops, the top of the box, open boxes, people holding boxes, all of that. So we were very kind of strategic with both the messaging points and the verticals. And I think even though it was steady and slow growth, the most important thing was that we were just continuously hammering these points home. And fast forward, 3.5 years, and we have about 60,000 Instagram followers. So we've definitely, and that's been all organic. So it's been really big for us as a channel. And then obviously the entire social media suite that accompanies that. So Facebook and Twitter, Pinterest, all of that. But Instagram is sort of the hero for us.
Right. That's excellent advice. I think, especially for everyone listening, women entrepreneurs who are either early stage of their business or reinventing and starting new businesses, the idea of getting clear on what your messaging is going to be consistently, your messaging and your aesthetic, as you said.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we look at brands and I look at your page and I can totally see, or I get a feel or a sense from it. It might not be the same as someone else, but I get a certain sense from it. Other people, you might look at their brand and you're just sort of confused.
Right, right. And that's honestly because they're a little bit confused.
Right.
So I think the most important thing, like to echo what you were saying, just getting really, really crystal clear. And honestly, if you can write it down, make a list, put it up somewhere, look at it every single day, I think that can really, really help shape the direction of your marketing.
Did you ever think about making BoxFox a subscription box, which I don't know if they're as popular now, but I know for a time I felt like a lot of people were launching these subscription boxes, or was it always all about gift boxes?
So, in the beginning, we actually had a lot of people get confused and assume because it was in a box, it was a subscription box.
Mm-hmm.
And we were always really sensitive to that because on a personal level, we just thought we don't love subscription boxes. We don't love that model. And we think a lot of times, especially when you need to send a gift, it's a one-off need. You just need to send it to somebody and really kind of be there when you can't be there. And so we were always kind of staying away from subscription boxes because that never felt like it was really the way that we wanted to conduct our business or anything like that. So, but yeah, we definitely had a lot of confusion in the beginning, people thinking we were a subscription box, all of that. And so we had to be pretty clear from the beginning that we would always say it's gifting when you need it, when you want it.
Okay. I was going to ask you, how did you make that distinction? So again, it was through your messaging.
Yes, absolutely. It was all about the messaging at the beginning.
So what would you say the last 3 years has been like for you all as a company? Where's the company now, and what are the ways that you've seen it grow?
Absolutely. I would say it's been an adventure for sure. We've kind of grown way quicker than we probably thought we were going to grow, and also in ways that we didn't really expect. I think one thing that was really surprising for us was, and you alluded to this earlier by saying there's so many reasons people gift, but one thing that was surprising was our B2B side of the business and corporate gifting. Mm-hmm. And so, what you see on the website is our e-commerce site, and that is all aimed at, everyday consumers. That has grown amazingly well. And that's sort of, again, why we started and our bread and butter of our business. The corporate side of the business was essentially built on inbound requests from prospective clients who really wanted to find a gifting partner to help them fulfill their client gifting needs. So many different use cases for this, but whether it's internal gifting, so you have employee onboarding, retreats, conferences, parties, all of that. And then you have the external needs, whether that's sales kits, client prospecting, thank yous, press mailers, all of those different things. And so ultimately, we realized that there's this huge market for B2B gifting that was completely underserved, or if it was, if a company was doing that, a lot of times it was very impersonal, or it was something that was handled internally, which was a huge pain point for clients. And so we, reacted to that by building out our corporate concierge team, who is totally dedicated to this sort of B2B gifting side. And I head up that whole department. That's been something we totally didn't anticipate when we started this company. But it's been, for us, a huge growth factor, as well as something we've all become really passionate about, because it really is aligned with our mission of making gifting more personal and elevated and effortless. And corporate clients have the same needs. They ultimately want a gift that's going to be memorable, help them further their relationships, but they also want a partner that's kind of going to help them do the heavy lifting.
Did you all kind of see that evolving over time and then make sure to pay attention to it? Because as you said, you didn't necessarily set out for that or didn't see that being a big part of the business, but it sounds like you've definitely made sure to make a shift in part of the business to support those clients as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was something that we noticed early on, probably our first 6 months in business. We started to get a few of these inquiries, and we realized, there's clients that are interested in this. That's really interesting for us. So we definitely started to track it and try to sort of shift our offerings to be able to cater to those clients. And then obviously, as that became more frequent, we tried to address that by hiring a little bit people with slightly different skill sets and for those particular roles. So I think it was definitely an evolution. And as a whole, I think for business owners, it's really important to stay alert and pay attention to your audience and who's buying from you, and also be flexible and be able to pivot. So, we always say we did have a business plan. We've probably never looked at that business plan again, but I think just being able to pivot from your original mission and kind of see how these new opportunities might actually fit into, your business. I think that is the best thing you can do as a business owner.
Such great advice. And I think that's for everyone listening, whether you have an actual physical product or even in the service business. I know I've been through that where I'm thinking I'm going to offer one thing, and then I notice people keep asking me for the same thing over and over again of something that I never thought of, even though it's still aligned with my expertise, right? So for you, it's not like they're asking you, well, why don't you rent cars? Not something totally off brand for you, but it's definitely on brand that you might not have thought of. So that's very wise advice.
Right. Absolutely. And I think to that point, you kind of have to know what you're going to say yes and no to. So, if I were to give myself some advice, kind of starting out, if I were to go back in time 3 years ago or things like that, I think the most important thing is listening to yourself in your gut, and evaluating opportunities that feel right versus feel wrong, and not being afraid to embrace the ones that feel right, even if they feel a little bit off from your initial vision. And then obviously say no to the ones that are absolutely out of your wheelhouse and something that you're not comfortable taking on, kind of having the confidence to do either.
For you, does it help having co-founders to be able to have those? Of course, you can make the decision on your own, but even those discussions, sometimes I feel like some of us as solopreneurs kind of feel like, I don't know which way to go, which is why mentors and coaches and those kind of things are important. But for you, having two co-founders, I'm wondering if those discussions are made easier with you all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having co-founders with all of those discussions is probably what allowed us to make a lot of the decisions that we've made, every day in our business. I think we're very lucky. And to your point, having mentors or somebody that you can bounce ideas off of and get opinions from is so, so important, because it is hard. Sometimes as a solopreneur, like you were saying, you can evaluate something, but ultimately to have a sounding board is really important.
And how do you all divide up, or how did you, I should say, even from the beginning, divide up who was going to be responsible for what as co-founders for anyone who's considering starting with friends or other business partners that they know? Did you do it based on the experience you already have? Because what you're doing now seems so aligned with what your experience has been.
Yeah. So at the beginning, I would say we all definitely started this company with having a hand in everything. So whether that was product research or concepting new collections or thinking about the website, marketing, partnerships, even finances, inventory, everything was the three of us all the time. And then I would say as we grew, it was a combination of realizing that we needed to be a little bit more efficient with our time and divide and conquer different tasks and things that we had to do, but also that we had natural skill sets that really allowed us to kind of focus on those different areas and excel within them. So really, I would say we started dividing up our kind of work processes probably a year and a half ago. So it wasn't, necessarily from the beginning. I would say we were small enough that we could sort of all work on everything at once. But really the way it's divided now is Chelsea is really the most traditionally creative of the three of us. So she sort of drives the creative vision of the brand. So that goes for our design to sort of our photography aesthetic, and everything creative with BoxFox is really her. Jenny is really, really detail oriented, and she's just one of those people that's on top of every single thing happening in our business at all times. So she really handles inventory, finances, HR, a lot of the operational aspects of what we do on a day-to-day basis. And I would say I would characterize myself as really big picture and strategic and forward thinking. So what that means is really driving our future business initiatives, leading sort of that corporate B2B sales strategy that I was talking about earlier, and thinking about tech solutions that will really drive our business forward. So it's a pretty good combination. It works for us. I would say it's, in 3 words, it's creative, strategic, and detail oriented. It is a characteristic that each of us have and bring to the table. And yeah, it's really allowed us to focus in on those areas that really matter for each of what we're already kind of good at naturally.
Excellent. So in doing some research on the company and you all, I think I saw, did you just open a new warehouse?
Yeah. So we actually, this is our 3rd warehouse.
Oh, your 3rd.
Yeah. So we had we were in the apartment. We were in one apartment in Venice. Then we were in another apartment. Then we were in 2 other warehouses. So this is our 3rd. And it's been really, really amazing for us because we moved in, actually, it's been about a year and a half, but we recently just redid it. And we were like, okay, it's time. We need to make this a space that feels very BoxFox and that we feel very good about. So we recently redid it, and it's been just really transformational for everyone that works here because it's exciting to come somewhere that we can all feel good about and that really reflects kind of the brand and our personality. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, so it's a combination of your office space and your warehouse. So you will actually ship your products from there.
Exactly. So we, so we ship everything from our warehouse. We don't use a third-party fulfillment center or anything like that. And that's really because we believe that our products are, that is what we do. And so we want to make sure that we're always sort of maintaining a certain standard and that everything is packed by hand and is really kind of coming from that personal touch that we have built this entire company on.
That's so interesting because a lot of companies might think, or founders might think right away, oh, let's figure out how we can get this shipped from China or from wherever else or through a third party so it'll be cheaper. But you all made a decision that this matters to your brand overall.
Exactly. I think, every company has different products and is going to be able to focus their energy differently. For us, our products are linked to our service. It's like one and the same. Mm-hmm. And so that from the beginning was something that we never wanted to compromise on. And we said, it might be more expensive, it might take more labor, all of that, but we're going to figure out a way to make this scalable and make sense for us. But we always want our customers to rest assured that their gifts are going to be, packaged in a way that feels human and personal and, elevated and beautiful.
Did you all bootstrap the company or did you get investors eventually?
So we are actually fully bootstrapped till this day. So we started, very exciting. We started with, some small savings that we pulled together. It was pretty minimal. And then from there, we were able to just keep reinvesting in the company ourselves. And we've been totally bootstrapped from the beginning. We're profitable, so it's very exciting. But yeah, I mean, we've been approached a lot. We've been asked a lot about why we wouldn't seek funding. And we have our reasons, ultimately for us, this feels like the best way to grow our company and it feels really authentic. We have hired a lot of people that we already know, friends and family, and it feels like it's a very sort of cohesive and community-driven environment, and that's the way that we like this company. So that's kind of the answer to that. But yeah, totally bootstrapped.
Excellent. And that, I think, gives you the opportunity or it's not really permission, but gives you the space to make a decision like, no, we're going to ship this from our warehouse here as opposed to looking for a cheaper way to do it, because it really is you guys are the owners.
Exactly. I think we don't have those external pressures and sort of people that we have to answer to, to make some of those business decisions that we feel really strongly about.
So just a couple more questions. One of the things you mentioned earlier was about some advice you might give yourself early on. But if you could say now, what would be, if you were talking to Sabena 3 or 4 years ago about to start this company, what would be the advice you would tell her about either starting a company like this or maybe entrepreneurship overall?
Yeah, I love that question. I think one thing is for me, I am a very black and white person, and I always used to think that there was a right answer to every question, and that there's kind of a right way to do things. And I think advice I would have given myself is there's going to be so many times over the next 3 years that you're not going to know the right answer, and that there's no rule book, and you can't just look up how to solve every single problem. But more importantly, the answers are really within you, and you really just have to have the confidence to believe that you are going to know what's right in that moment. And so I think for me, that advice would have been just be confident in yourself. You're on this journey for a reason. You know the answers as well as anybody else. So you don't need to always seek advice from other people. You can really kind of dig deep and try to understand how to solve a problem, and be confident in that, because we were all really young when we started this company. I was 24, Chelsea and Jenny were 22. So a lot of, that sort of felt like an obstacle a lot of the time, because we didn't have a ton of experience to draw from, and we were young and we were female and all of those things. And so I think having that innate self-confidence and saying, it's going to work out, it's going to be okay. You're going to, even mistakes that you make, you're going to learn from those. I think having that, somebody tell me that would have been really awesome.
Excellent. So you just shared that advice with thousands of women who can now take that from you and move on. So
I'm glad.
Yeah, excellent. So in closing, Sabena, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
It would definitely be my mom, which I guess is very timely because it's Mother's Day around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
I think, the reason for that is that she's just always had so much faith in me, no matter what challenge that I'm kind of trying to take on, or at any stage of my life, even times where like I didn't believe in myself, she always believed in me and pushed me forward. A great example of that, and I don't share this all the time, but I initially didn't actually get into USC. I actually had to get in off of an appeal, and that, appeals, for context, work about 0.1% of the time. So that basically that process is, if you get rejected, you can submit new information that a school could then use to overturn their decision. And they're basically pointless because schools never change their mind. But my mom said, no, you didn't get in, but this is your dream school. You're going to go after it. You're going to find a way to make this happen for yourself. And I didn't believe in myself. I said, Mom, no, why would they listen to me? They rejected me. It's not worth my time. And so eventually she convinced me, and I ended up writing a super impassioned appeal letter, including all of this information about projects that I'd worked on and, newspaper articles I've written. And I got a great recommendation letter from a former employer and things like that. And they ended up overturning the decision, which, again, statistically speaking, never happens. So that for me was just like the perfect example of like my mom just knows best, and she really, really has been such a source of strength and inspiration for me throughout. And so I would just say thank you for always kind of believing in me when I didn't believe in myself.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is a beautiful Mother's Day tribute overall. And thank you for sharing something you said you don't commonly share with people. Is a powerful story of not giving up.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. So now what are the ways that we can support you? I know everybody wants to go shopping. I know I am for Mother's Day. But tell everyone where to find you guys on social media, your website, all that good stuff.
Yep. Our website is shop, SHOP, BoxFox, BoxFox.com. And you can follow us on Instagram at the same URL, shop BoxFox. So make sure to shop our Mother's Day collection, build a BoxFox, and also follow us on Instagram. We are always posting great content. And the third way too is to subscribe to our weekly email list. We have something called the Foxtail, and we put a ton of content on there about gifting, entrepreneurship, all of that jazz. So definitely subscribe.
And that the newsletter we can subscribe via your website.
Via the website, exactly.
Excellent. Now the gifts, because this will come out after Mother's Day, gifts are not only for women, right?
Nope, we have gifts for all people of all ages. So we have gifts for men, women, younger kids, all
Perfect.
of that. So definitely build a box for anyone special in your life.
Excellent. So anyone, if you're listening to this after Mother's Day, we're thinking about Mother's Day. It's around the corner. If you're listening to this after that, though, you can still go to shopboxfox.com and get a great gift.
Exactly.
Fantastic. So Sabena, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, especially letting me dig into the how-to so much of your business, but then for sharing your story as well. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This was amazing. It was great chatting with you, and I'll talk to you soon, hopefully.
Excellent. Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
About anything. Parting piece of advice would be don't take no for an answer. There's always another way.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Sabena. To find out more about her, to find out more about BoxFox, make sure you go to supportissexypodcast.com. Go to that search icon at the top and just type in Sabena, Sabena. Her show notes page will pop up with links and the resources, everything that she mentioned in this episode. Supportissexypodcast.com and just search Sabena. Thank you so much for being here. You know, I appreciate you. Until we chat again next time, always remember that you deserve support. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.